The whole thing started with a whisper. "Ethan, if you really mean it, say it in front of everyone." Audrey Hart leaned in beside the graduation stage, the sleeve of her white gown grazing my arm. No more hiding. No more little notes passed in the hall. No more private promises. The football field was a wall of noise and color. Parents craning for photos, seniors packed shoulder to shoulder, teachers along the edges, phones already recording, balloons bobbing, blue banners cracking in the June wind. Principal Marsh had just wrapped up the honor roll. The student choir was filing off. In about 2 minutes, I was supposed to step up and give a short senior speech, because I'd taken the state engineering award. Audrey stood there smiling like a girl waiting for the last scene of a love story. 20 feet off, near the front row, Derek Walsh had his gown hanging half open on purpose, just enough for everyone to catch the glint of his watch. Quarterback. School heartthrob. The kid teachers called rough around the edges because his father wrote checks to the athletics program. He watched Audrey's fingers rest on my sleeve, and he grinned like a man who'd already read the last page. Behind me in line, cap sitting crooked, Mike Reynolds bent close and muttered, "Something about this smells staged." Audrey caught it and laughed under her breath. "Mike, not everything is a conspiracy." "You're right," he said. "Some things are just badly planned cruelty." Her smile went thin. She turned back to me and dropped her voice. "Ethan, don't let him wreck this. You told me after graduation we'd stop hiding. So say it." I looked at the microphone. I looked at the rows of caps. I looked at where my parents were sitting near the front. Mom had her hands folded in her lap, wearing the blue dress she saved for days that mattered. Dad's chair was empty. Principal Marsh had told me he had donor protocol to deal with before the ceremony, and nobody else knew what that phrase meant. Audrey figured he was running late from work. She always figured that. For 3 years, she'd told people my father fixed trucks, wore beat-up jackets, smelled like motor oil. She never once wondered why the garage he owned employed 47 people. Why my college paperwork never mentioned a single loan, or why Ms. Harper treated my engineering prototype like something serious people had already seen. She saw exactly what she wanted to see. A useful poor boyfriend with good grades and no social pull. Then Marsh called my name. "Our next speaker is Ethan Miller, winner of the State Applied Engineering Award and a National Scholar finalist." Polite applause rolled up, solid from the teachers, loud from Mike's family, barely. There at Derek's table, Audrey clasped both hands to her chest by the stairs, eyes glistening for the cameras. I walked to the mic with my speech card in my palm. 3 paragraphs about work, about teachers, about building things that last. Say it in front of everyone. No more hiding. Her words still hung in the air. I set the card down. The field went quiet. Before I talk about the award, I said, I want to say something to someone who's been a big part of my senior year. Audrey's lips parted. Derek sat up straight. From behind the stage curtain, Mike breathed. "Oh, no." I turned to her. "Audrey Hart, for 3 years, I believed we were building a future together. I helped you with applications, projects, essays. Every deadline you swore was life or death. I kept us private because you asked me to. So today, in front of everyone, I'm going to ask one honest question. Do you still want that future with me?" Silence. Phones rose like a second crowd. Audrey walked toward the steps slowly, giving every lens time to find her face. Sad. Beautiful. Rehearsed. Before I could stop her, she lifted the microphone off the stand. "Ethan, I'm sorry," she said, soft as a hymn. A murmur crawled across the field. She turned to the audience. "You're kind. You're smart. But kindness and good grades aren't enough to build a life on." Derek rose from the front row. She looked at him and held out her hand. He climbed the steps and took it. The senior section exploded into whispers. "I can't choose a life of struggle just because someone helped me with my homework," she went on. "I can't pretend I ever saw you as more than a good friend who got a little confused." Derek squeezed her hand and lifted his chin toward the mic. She picked someone who can actually stand next to her. Laughter cracked open at the football table. Audrey looked at me with wet eyes and a blade hidden behind them. "I hope you can move on, Ethan. Please don't make this ugly." From stage left, Mike hollered. "She made it ugly when she brought props." Principal Marsh was half out of her chair, face gone pale. The teachers froze. Parents leaned into each other. I looked at Audrey's hand in Derek's. I looked at his watch. I looked at the microphone she'd lifted out of my speech. Then I picked up my card and slid it back into my pocket. "Congratulations," I said clear and flat. Audrey blinked. Derek frowned. I turned away from both of them and faced the crowd. "I hope you two get exactly what you've earned." That landed harder than any shout could have. Before Derek could fire back, Principal Marsh rushed the microphone from the other side, her voice pulled tight. "Thank you, Ethan. Please stay on stage." At this time, Westbridge High is honored to welcome the largest private sponsor in the history of our school, the founder of Miller Applied Systems and the Miller Future Scholars Foundation, Mr. Daniel Miller. The applause started before anyone understood why. And then my father walked out in a black suit. I'd seen him wear maybe twice in my whole life. The field shifted under everyone's feet. My mother stood. The teachers straightened. Near the front, Derek's father, Mr. Walsh, got to his feet and stopped smiling. Audrey's hand slid out of Derek's like it had never been there. Dad shook Marsh's hand, then turned to me. He set one hand on my shoulder. "Proud of you, son." The mic caught every word, and the whole field held its breath. The color drained out of Audrey's face. Derek stared at Dad, then at me, then at the giant Miller Foundation banner hanging behind the stage. Dad looked out over the crowd. "Good afternoon. For 12 years, my family's foundation has supported Westbridge High anonymously because my son asked to go through school without special treatment." A wave of sound moved through the seats. Today we're announcing the new Miller Engineering Center, a $22 million endowment for equipment, scholarships, and need-based academic support. Derek's mouth fell open. Audrey stepped back like the stage had tilted under her heels. Dad turned slightly toward me. This endowment was inspired by Ethan's work, his prototype, and his belief that students should be judged by what they build, not by who performs the loudest. From the side, Mike whispered, loudly, that was biblical. Marsh didn't correct him. Dad's eyes moved to Derek, then to Audrey. He never raised his voice. I planned to keep the focus on the graduating class. But since my son's character just got publicly debated on this stage, let me clarify one thing. Ethan has already been admitted to Millstone University's Engineering Honors Program, full tuition covered. His future doesn't depend on anyone's approval here. Audrey's fists tightened in the fabric of her gown. Derek lowered the mic. He was still gripping. Dad reached into his jacket and unfolded a letter. And because the Miller Foundation is now attaching academic integrity conditions to every Westbridge-funded scholarship, any student who used false claims, stolen work, or manipulated recommendations will be reviewed before receiving $1. In the faculty row, Mr. Grant went gray. "Ethan," Audrey whispered. I looked at her. She had rejected the boy she thought was beneath her, in favor of the boy she thought came preloaded with money and cameras and power. And that power had just walked onto the stage and called me son. Marsh tried to steer the ceremony back on track, smiling too hard, asking everyone to please stay seated. Dad stepped away from the mic and pressed the millstone folder into my hands. Derek was still standing next to Audrey, but her hand was gone from his. The field buzzed. His dad, the Miller Foundation, $22 million. She just dumped him. Derek hadn't known. Mike drifted up behind me. "This," he murmured, "is the kind of plot twist that gets a school investigated." Audrey took a step toward me. "Ethan, can we talk?" I glanced at the mic in Derek's hand. "You already did." Derek snapped back to life. "This changes nothing. She still turned you down." "Correct," I said. His voice climbed. "So don't act like your dad's money makes you better than anybody." Dad turned toward him slowly. "Young man, Ethan didn't mention money. You did." Derek's face went red. "Mister." Walsh started for the stage steps, but Marsh stopped him cold with a single look. Audrey lifted both hands. "I didn't know, Ethan. You never told me. You didn't reject me because you were missing information," I said. "You rejected me because you thought you already had enough." She flinched. Derek grabbed the mic tighter. She wanted someone with confidence. She wanted the sponsor package. Mike called and clicked the wrong card. A few students laughed before they could catch themselves. Derek jabbed a finger at him. "Shut up, Reynolds." Mike raised both palms. I'm not the one who scheduled a betrayal during a donor announcement. Marsh reached for the mic. Derek yanked it away. No, everyone should hear this. Ethan acts like the victim, but he trailed Audrey around for years. He did her homework, so she'd owe him. The field went quiet again. That was the next knife. Audrey didn't stop him. She stared at the grass. I pulled out my phone, opened a folder, and handed it to Principal Marsh. Before this goes any further, you should have the records. She looked at the screen, and her face hardened. From the faculty row, Ms. Harper stood. Principal Marsh, I have copies too. Mr. Grant got up too fast. This isn't the time for student disputes. Dad looked at him. You seemed comfortable enough when the dispute was my son being humiliated in public. Grant sat back down slowly. Marsh took the mic out of Derek's hand. Derek, step down. Why? Because, Dad said, you're done using my son's ceremony as your stage. Derek looked at his father. Mr. Walsh's face was crimson, but he gave one short nod. Derek stepped off, furious. Audrey stayed up there, shaking. Marsh tried once more. We'll continue with the ceremony. After Ethan finishes his speech, Dad said quietly. Marsh looked at me. Ethan. I walked back to the microphone. Audrey was still close enough to hear me breathe. I unfolded the original card, read it once, and set it down again. I was going to talk about building things that last. I said, that still fits. The field stilled. A bridge holds because every piece carries its own weight. If one piece only pretends to, the whole structure fails. This year, I learned that helping someone isn't the same as carrying them, and being quiet isn't the same as being weak. Yes, sir, Mike shouted. The crowd laughed soft. Thank you to Ms. Harper, who checked my work and not my family name. Thank you to my parents, who taught me to keep my hands clean even when other people play dirty. And thank you to everyone who showed me what they value before I wasted another year. Provin mine. I stepped back. This time the applause came hard. Not polite, not confused, strong. Audrey stood frozen at the edge of the stage while it flowed around her like water around a rock. The ceremony went on, but the field never really settled. Every name after mine carried an echo. Audrey walked back to the senior row without Derek's hand. Derek sat stiff beside his father, jaw locked. Mr. Walsh kept whispering into his phone. Grant stared at his program and never looked up. Dad returned to his reserve sponsor seat beside Mom. And for the first time in 3 years, everyone in that field understood that my mother's blue dress and my father's worn work hands belonged in the front row all along. When they called Audrey's name, the applause was thin and confused. She crossed the stage fast, took her diploma cover, and looked toward me. I didn't move. When they called Derek, the football table tried to cheer, but Coach Daniel stayed seated. Mr. Walsh clapped too loud. And when they called mine for the final diploma line, the applause rose before Marsh even finished. Ethan Miller. I walked across. She shook my hand and said quietly, I'm sorry for how that happened. Then make sure the records are clean, I said. She nodded once. We'll review everything. Afterward, the field flooded with families. Cameras flashed, students yelled, balloons smacked the goalposts. Audrey found me by the side fence before my family reached me, still clutching her diploma cover, her face scrubbed clean of every practiced look. Ethan, please. I didn't know your father was Daniel Miller. I know. She stepped closer. If I had known, I cut her off. That's not the apology you think it is. Her lips parted. I was embarrassed. Derek pushed me. He said if I didn't make it public, you'd keep telling people we were together. We were together. Her eyes filled. You kept us private, because you asked me to. She looked down. I thought Derek could help me more. Mike appeared at my side with a water bottle and zero patience. He helped you find the worst possible moment. She ignored him. Etan, I'm sorry. Something in me went still. You planned it. She shook her head. No. I opened my phone and played a 14-second clip Mike had sent me during a ceremony. Derek's voice from behind the stage. Do it when he asks. Make it clean. Hold my hand after. He'll look pathetic. Then Audrey's own voice. And you'll talk to your dad about the Walsh recommendation. Dinner. Derek. Yeah. The color fell out of her face. Wide shot, Mike said. Clean audio. You two really should have rehearsed. You recorded us, she whispered. No, Mike said. The school recorded the stage area for the live stream. I just asked the AV kid to save the file after you detonated in public. Audrey turned back to me. Ethan, I can explain. Dad's voice came from behind her, then explained to Principal Marsh. She spun around. Dad stood with Mom at his side. Both calm, both watching. Not to me, Dad said. Not to my son in a parking lot. To the school. Audrey's mother hurried over, face pale. Audrey, what is going on? Audrey didn't answer. Across the field, Derek saw us and started walking. His father grabbed his arm. Derek shook him off and came anyway. What are you showing her? Mike held up his phone. Your director's notes. Derek froze. Dad looked at him evenly. Your father and I should talk with the principal. Mr. Walsh came up behind Derek. No, we should not. Graduation's over. This is personal drama. Dad turned to him. When your son uses school events, school microphones, and school recommendations to humiliate a foundation scholar during a donor ceremony, it becomes school business. Walsh's jaw flexed. Careful, Daniel. Dad's expression never moved. I am. Marsh arrived with Harper and Coach Daniels in tow. We're moving this conversation inside. For what? Derek snapped. She rejected him. That's not illegal. No, Ms. Harper said. But using the school livestream setup to build a false public narrative, then tying it to recommendation leverage, may violate several policies. Translation, bad day, Mike whispered. Coach Daniels looked at Derek. Walk. Derek looked at Audrey. Audrey looked away. That was the first real crack between them. The conference room in the administration building felt smaller than it had all year. Graduation noise leaked in through the windows, but inside, every chair carried a problem. Marsh sat at the head. Dad sat beside Mom. I sat with Mike and Ms. Harper near the wall. Audrey sat between her mother and Mr. Hart, who'd finally made it in from the lot. Derek sat with his father. Mr. Grant came in last, looking like he wanted to be anywhere on earth but here. Marsh set a laptop on the table. We're reviewing the live stream audio from the staging area. Ethan has also submitted records and concerns regarding academic integrity. Quickly, Grant said. I strongly recommend separating emotional matters from academic ones, Marsh said. MS. Harper opened her folder. They're already connected. She laid printed pages on the table. Audrey Hart's college application materials include project descriptions that match. Ethan Miller's engineering prototype logs, including language lifted straight from drafts Ethan submitted to me back in October. Audrey's mother turned to her. Audrey? He helped me write them, Audrey whispered. I helped you edit, I said. You submitted my project language as your own leadership role. Derek snorted. Nerd paperwork. Dad looked at him. Paperwork is how adults prove things. Daniel Miller and the Gospel of Paperwork, Mike murmured. Marsh opened the first file, Audrey's activity essay. I led a water filtration prototype team that demonstrated scalable, low-cost rural deployment. MS. Harper opened my lab log from 2 months earlier. The exact sentence. Except mine read, I built. Audrey wasn't on the build roster, Harper said. She came to one presentation rehearsal and asked to be dropped from lab testing because it conflicted with social committee work. I helped with the public-facing polish, Audrey said. She told him the titles sounded poor, Mike offered. Audrey glared. Mike raised his hands. Witness comment. It's common for students to get peer support on their application language, Grant said. I pulled out another page. A message from Audrey, 1:13 a.m. 3 weeks before the deadline. Can you make my project section sound like I did more? Grant says leadership matters. Underneath, my reply. I won't lie about your role. And beneath that, Audrey again. Then don't be surprised if I pick someone who actually knows how to help. Audrey covered her face. Her father stood and walked to the window. Mr. Walsh leaned back. Teenage exaggeration. Not worth a donor's tantrum. Dad turned to him. My donation isn't the issue. The foundation's integrity clause is. You think because your name's on a building, you own the school. No, Dad said. I think because my money funds the scholarships, I can require honest records before it goes out. That's correct under the foundation agreement, Marsh said. Walsh's face tightened. Derek muttered, "This is insane." From the door, Coach Daniels said, "What was insane was turning graduation into a humiliation stunt." Derek pointed at me. "He started it with that fake confession." "Audrey asked me to make it public," I said. Marsh played the staging audio. Audrey's whisper came through, crystal clear. "If you really mean it, say in front of everyone." Then Derek's voice, later, "Do it when he asks. Make it clean. Hold my hand after." Audrey's mother started crying softly. Mr. Hart turned from the window. "You planned this." "I didn't think it would go that far," Audrey said. "You took the microphone," I said. She had no answer. Grant cleared his throat. Audrey made poor choices, but Ethan's hidden family status created confusion. The room went still. Mom turned to him, slow. His private family status didn't make her lie. And it didn't make Derek hand her a script, Dad added. It also didn't make Mr. Grant accept Audrey's inflated project claim without checking with the supervising teacher, Harper said. Grant flushed. Marsh looked at him. "You certified that activity, based on students' self-report." "I sent correction notes twice," Harper said. Grant didn't answer. The whole thing shifted again. This wasn't only about Audrey and Derek anymore. There was an adult in the room who had helped polish their version of the truth. The first ruling came before anyone stood up. Marsh announced the school would open an academic integrity review into Audrey's application materials, Derek's recommendation conduct, and Grant's certification practices. The Miller Foundation's upcoming awards would be paused for any student under review. Not canceled, paused, until the records checked out. Audrey's head jerked up. Paused? My summer bridge scholarship. Foundation funds require accurate records, Dad said. But I need that program. Then you should have built your own application, I said. Derek stood. This is revenge. Dad looked at him. No. Revenge would be me making one phone call. This is process. Walsh got up too. Daniel, think carefully. Bullying students won't do your foundation's reputation any favors. Dad buttoned his jacket. My foundation's reputation will survive asking students not to steal work or stage public humiliations. Foundation Dad does not miss, Mike whispered. Mom elbowed him. Everyone will get written notice by Monday, Marsh said. Until then, don't post about this meeting. Derek laughed. You can't control what people say. Mike looked at him. You keep saying that right before the video evidence shows up. Derek glared. Outside, families were still taking pictures under the arch. Audrey walked out first, her mother holding her arm. She didn't look at Derek. Derek shoved through the door behind them and kicked the baseboard. Walsh, Coach Daniels said. Derek stopped. Coach pointed toward the lot. Go home. Mr. Walsh tried to pull Dad aside, but Dad held up one hand. All further communication goes through the school of the foundation attorney. Walsh's whole expression changed. He'd come expecting the old rules of school politics, the ones where the loud donor pushes the quiet parents around. He'd just discovered he wasn't the biggest donor in the room. Mom and Dad walked me back toward the field. Mom took my diploma cover, opened it, and even though everyone knew the real diploma would arrive by mail later, she said, You still graduated. Yes, ma'am. Dad put a hand on my shoulder, and in good standing. Mike appeared on my other side, with a live-action villain reveal. Mom said. He nodded. And family support. Dad almost smiled. By Monday morning, the story had already outrun everyone. Half the senior class had screen-recorded the clip of Audrey rejecting me. The clip of Dad walking on stage traveled even further. People cut it together with Derek's face, Audrey dropping his hand, and Dad's voice. Proud of you, son. One student page captioned it. She rejected the sponsor's son at graduation. I hated that version. It made money sound like the point. Mike hated it for a different reason. It's inaccurate, he said. She rejected the son of the engineering honors full-ride sponsor after using his project language. Details matter. I told him not to comment. He commented anyway from a burner account and called it public service. Audrey posted first. Polished, lawyer-adjacent, very Audrey. Graduation was emotional. A private relationship was put under public pressure. I made a choice for my future, and I hope people respect that without twisting unrelated scholarship matters. No mention of the staged audio. No mention of Derek's line. No mention of my application work. Derek reposted it with, "People hate when a girl chooses better." That was enough. I put up one statement. Audrey asked me to make our relationship public on stage. Derek instructed her to reject me and hold his hand. After that, school records raised concerns about false project claims. These are not unrelated. Beneath it, I attached the 14-second audio, the application excerpt with the personal details blurred, and MS. Harper's roster showing Audrey never worked on the prototype. I didn't insult her. I didn't call Derek names. I let their own words do the work. The comments turned in waves. Shock first, then jokes, then anger. She called him a friend who got confused after telling him to confess. Derek directed the rejection like a school play. She used his project, then said grades weren't enough. This is why scholarship audits exist. Audrey deleted her statement by lunch. Derek posted edited clips again. Mike replied, "Unedited enough to hear you." Derek blocked him. At 2, Marsh sent a school-wide email reminding graduates that post-graduation conduct could still affect certified endorsements and foundation-funded programs, and that the school would review any application materials tied to Westbridge signatures. Grant's name wasn't in it. Everyone knew. The next day, Audrey came to campus with her mother for the review. She didn't look like the girl from the stage anymore. No perfect smile, no bright white dress. Just a folder held to her chest and eyes that avoided the front office windows. I was there with Ms. Harper because the review concerned my project. Audrey saw me. "Can we talk before this?" "No." She stepped closer. "Ethan, I didn't know your dad was..." "Stop starting apologies with what you didn't know." Her eyes filled. I was scared of getting left behind. "So you tried to step on me." She looked down. "Derek said I had to choose someone with a real future." I glanced toward the office door, where Derek was arguing with Coach Daniels. "Then you built that future out of stolen parts." She covered her mouth. "I didn't think of it like that." Mike, materializing with a vending machine soda, said, "Which is exactly why thinking is recommended before a public betrayal." She glared at him through tears. MS. Harper opened the door. "We're ready." The review ran 2 hours. Audrey admitted I drafted or heavily edited chunks of her application. She insisted she hadn't understood the difference between editing and false. Representation. Harper laid out the lab roster and a message asking me to make her project section sound bigger. Grant tried to file it under Common Application Coaching. Dr. Levin, in from the district, asked him why he'd ignored Harper's correction notes. Grant said his office had been overloaded. "Overload doesn't change authorship," Harper said. Audrey's Summer Bridge scholarship from the Miller Foundation was suspended. Her college would be told Westbridge couldn't certify the project leadership claim. Her honor notation was amended. She'd keep her diploma, just not the shiny record she'd planned to carry into freshman year. She cried silently through it. In the hallway afterward, she said, "You could tell them I helped more. You could have helped more." She had no answer. Derek's review was louder. He denied everything until the school played the staging audio, then called it a joke. He denied pressuring Audrey until Mike produced a longer backstage clip where Derek said, "You want Walsh-level doors or not?" He denied leaning on his father's influence until Coach Daniels produced emails from Mr. Walsh asking that Derek's athletic recommendation be protected from emotional graduation fallout. Walsh called that phrase normal advocacy. Dad's foundation attorney called it attempted influence over a conduct review. Derek lost his senior athletic endorsement from Westbridge. His preferred college requested an updated disciplinary statement. His father threatened to pull the Walsh athletic donation. Marsh accepted the withdrawal of all future Walsh donations in writing. 2 hours later, the Miller Foundation announced that part of the new endowment would cover athletic tutoring and financial support, so the program would never again lean on one family. Mike read the announcement and laughed so hard he had to sit down. "Your dad replaced the donation before the threat finished loading." "That wasn't the point," I said. "It wasn't the point," Mike agreed. "But it was art." Grant resigned before his personnel review even wrapped. His resignation email called the whole thing a misunderstanding about student support. Harper read it and said, "That's a long way to spell accountability." The school moved on faster than I expected because summer is a powerful solvent. Graduation photos, dorm lists, orientation forms, and summer jobs shoved the scandal out of the main group chat. But Audrey's name stayed welded to the clip. The public rejection, the handhold dad. Walking on, the review. People started calling it the sponsor stage incident. I hated that name too, but you can't control what the internet decides to call things. You can only control the record. A week after graduation, Audrey showed up at Lawson's garage, where I was helping Dad inspect equipment for a summer training program. She stood near the entrance in jeans and a plain sweater, holding a folder. Dad saw her first and looked at me. "Your call." I went out. She held out the folder. "These are the drafts you helped me with." I pulled the project section out of my application update. I didn't take it. Send it through the school. She lowered her hand. "Derek isn't talking to me." I said nothing. "His father says I caused the review." "You both did." She wiped her cheek fast. "I really did care about you." I looked at the open bay door, the workers moving inside, Dad's name on the training banner, and the college folder sitting in my truck. "Maybe, but you respected the version of me you thought was useful, not the person." She flinched. "If I had known who your father was," I shook my head. "That's still the wrong sentence." She closed her eyes. "I know." And for the first time, she didn't tack anything onto it. No defense. No tears for effect. No request. She turned and walked back to her car. Mike, watching from inside with a wrench he had no business holding, said, "Did she finally apologize correctly?" "No," I said. "She finally stopped apologizing incorrectly." Mike considered that. Growth adjacent. Dad came out with a clipboard. "You ready for the millstone paperwork?" "Yes, sir." He looked down the road Audrey had taken. Some people only see value after a price tag shows up. Mom, arriving with lunch, said from behind him. Then they were shopping, not loving. Mike whispered, "Mrs. Miller wins the chapter." "What chapter?" Mom said. "Nothing," Mike said. The summer send-off happened in July, in the Westbridge Auditorium. Less dramatic than graduation, but cleaner. The Miller Foundation formally presented its first round of future scholars. Need-based awards, engineering tool grants, teacher lab funding, community college bridge stipends. Dad insisted no scholarship carry my name. I insisted harder. Ms. Harper introduced the program with one sentence that sounded like both a warning and a promise. "This foundation will support students who do the work, tell the truth, and carry their own names honestly." Dad asked me to say a few words. This time no one stood beside me with a hidden script. No Audrey at the stairs. No Derek waiting with a watch. Mike stood at the back holding a sign that read, "Microphone theft," until Marsh made him lower it. I stepped to the podium. A few weeks ago, I learned that public humiliation can feel loud for about a minute, and then look very small next to a clean record. I also learned that help only matters when it doesn't turn into somebody else's mask. The room stayed quiet. This program should help students build their own work. Not borrow someone else's. Not fake a story. Not chase a name. Build something. Put your name on it. Stand behind it. Dad clapped first. Then Mom. Then the whole room. Afterward, near the auditorium doors, a local education reporter caught me. "Ethan, people online have focused on your father's reveal at graduation. How do you see it?" I held my Millstone orientation folder under one arm. My father walking on stage didn't make me valuable. It just showed people what they'd already been ignoring. "And Audrey Hart rejecting you?" I looked across the lobby. Audrey wasn't there. Derek wasn't there. Grant was gone. Ms. Harper was helping a freshman family fill out a lab grant form. Dad was talking to Coach Daniels about tutoring money. Mom was packing leftover sandwiches into a bag because she never wasted food. Mike hovered behind the reporter until his mother hauled him off by the collar. "She had every right to reject me," I said. "She did not have the right to lie about what I was, use my work, or stage my humiliation for someone else's benefit." Do you feel like you won? I feel like I left with my name clean. That was the last clip, and it spread. Not as far as the stage video. It didn't need to. The people who mattered saw it. In August, I packed for Millstone. Mom taped my admission letter beside my graduation photo on the fridge. Dad fixed the porch step and said college boys needed a stable way out the door. Mike brought a grocery store cake that read "Congrats EDHN" because the bakery still hated my name and claimed the missing A stood for Audrey. Mom told him that was terrible. Dad laughed anyway. The night before I left, I opened the folder where I'd kept the senior speech card. 3 paragraphs about building things that last. I'd never actually read them out loud. I slid the card behind a millstone letter and closed the folder. On graduation day, Audrey rejected me in front of the whole school and took Derek's hand because she decided my future was small. A second later, my father walked on stage as the biggest sponsor Westbridge ever had. But that was never the real revenge. The revenge wasn't the money or the gasps or Derek's face or Audrey's hand slipping out of his. The real revenge was walking off that field with my diploma, my record, my work, and my family name still clean. She thought she was rejecting a poor kid with good grades. What she actually rejected was the one person who knew exactly how much of her future had been built with my hands.